pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so for some of you that are here, probably for Board of Adjustments, you're in the right place. We have a Planning Commission meeting first. When we get done with that, we'll adjourn and then we'll move over to the variance side of our things. So just so you guys know, you're in the right place. So. Okay, so this is the meeting of the Morrison County Planning Commission. The commission is made up of citizens from the 5 commissioner districts of the county. The purpose of this commission is to oversee the preparation of the Morrison County land use controls, hear and review applications, and offer recommendations for conditional use permits, interim use permits, subdivision plat approval, planned unit developments, rezones, and other matters to be considered by it under the Morrison County Land Use Control Ordinance. Our powers are established in state statutes chapters 394.21 through 394.37. Conditional uses and interim uses are recommended for approval upon a showing by an applicant that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied. All questions must be answered in an affirmative in order for the Planning Commission to recommend approval of a CUP or an IUP unless conditions can be attached that bring the proposed use into compliance and mitigate the negative finding of fact. The conditions and restrictions may be imposed by the Planning Commission as deemed necessary to protect the public interest. After your public hearing is complete, you may leave if you wish. And we have one item on the agenda for the Planning Commission, and that is Carmine and Charlene Rubidoux and April Lack, 8045 330th Street, Cushing, Minnesota. Application to rezone a parcel from agriculture to commercial for the purpose of creating a multi-use wellness center, a gift shop, located in the point of northwest quarter, Section 20, Township 132, Range 30, Scandia Valley Township. At this time, if the applicant would come forward and sit up here and just state your name for the record. You have to talk into the microphone so we can hear you whenever you talk.
My name is April Lack.
Okay, so we're here to look at changing this from ag to commercial. So I guess I'm jumping ahead of things. So we got staff report first. So Amy, you ready with that?
I am, Mr. Chair. No, that's just fine, Mr. Chair. Again, this is an application to rezone a parcel from agriculture to commercial for the purpose of establishing a multi-use wellness center. Again, this is in Section 20 of Scandia Valley Township. The applicable ordinance section is Section 508, and that does require a public hearing to change the official zoning map. Here's a plat map of Scandia Valley Township, and the red dot is the location of the parcel. And then here's the rezone request received from the applicant, along with a site drawing. Here's an aerial photo of the parcel outlined in blue. And then here's some oblique imagery of the property. This is a 2-acre parcel on the corner of 330th Street, which is also known as County Road 203, and Dove Road, which is also known as County State Aid Highway 1. This location is on the eastern edge of the lakes area in the northwest corner of the county. And then here's a zoomed out aerial map with the property outlined in blue. This structure was originally utilized as the Rail Prairie Town Hall. In the 1990s, the township leased the building for the operation of a gift shop, which was never established, and then sold the property in 2000. The new property owners constructed a second-story addition onto the structure, and the property was then sold again in 2004 to the current owners, the Rubidoux. In 2004, the current property owners requested a conditional use permit to establish a bed and breakfast. That permit was granted. The property owner also constructed a 2,268 square foot addition along with a 1,050 square foot attached garage. The bed and breakfast has not operated for many years, and the septic system is not functional. The building has sat vacant for many years. And then here is a dialed in oblique image of the structure. The applicant, Ms. Lack, would like to purchase the property from the Ribidos. The applicant would like to establish a multi-business wellness center. Office suites would be rented to wellness practitioners, such as massage therapists, along with a yoga studio, coffee, and gift shop. Because of the number of individual businesses and potential number of employees, this request is not a fit for the limited rural business use allowed within the agriculture zoning district. Staff advised the applicant that a rezone to commercial would be the best avenue to establish this particular use. Access to the property is off 330th Street, and the applicant is proposing to move the existing entrance further to the west to accommodate access to parking. The applicant has discussed this with the county engineer, and the engineer has provided comment. And then here is that comment that was in your packet as well. So I'll read it if you'd like, otherwise I'll keep going. Keep going, Mr. Chair? Okay. There is no commercially zoned property near this parcel. The surrounding area is zoned agriculture and shoreland. Primary land uses around the property is rural residences, productive ag land, and seasonal recreational land. And then here's an aerial photograph. Everything that does not have color has an agriculture zoning district. Everything with the green is a shoreland zoning district. The purpose of the agriculture zoning district is to promote and protect areas which have high-quality agricultural lands and are essentially rural in nature. Within this district, agricultural activities are given precedence over other land uses. The purpose of the commercial zoning district is to promote and protect areas which currently are active commercial areas or meet the comprehensive plan guidelines for future or desired commercial development. The applicable comprehensive plan goals and objectives is agriculture, goal A1, objective 6, goal A2, objective 1. In commercial, goals C1 and C2. And then objectives 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 16, 17, and 19. 12 notices were sent, and one comment was received prior to the public hearing, and I will read that. That is from Scandia Valley Township. This letter is to formally notify you that the Scandia Valley Town Board discussed the rezoning request for the property at 8045 330th Street, Cushing, from agriculture to commercial. Supervisor Nygren has concerns about commercial zoning in that location and what could be done with commercial zoning in the future. He would rather see it have a conditional use permit issued. Supervisor Nygren, seconded by Supervisor Card, made a motion to notify the Planning Commission stating the township's position. The town board would prefer that a conditional use permit be issued rather than a zoning change. And so, Mr. Chair, I believe I had forwarded that to the board when I received this, but here is the written comment. I also do have on another slide the use chart for the agriculture and commercial zoning districts. So if you want to refer to those, I've got those ready for discussion. And then, Mr. Chair, as you know, there is no criteria questions for zoning, but here are some discussion questions that might help lead your discussion. I also will remind the Planning Commission that you do not have the ability to condition a rezone. So a rezone is either granted or denied, cannot be conditioned for only the purpose of a wellness center or for only this and not that. So just wanted to remind you of that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Amy. At this time, I just asked the applicant, April, if you just want to explain what your plans are, give us kind of the lowdown of what you're looking at here and how you came to this situation and your reasoning.
Okay, thank you. So I opened my business in Pillager. It's called Nadiami's Farm. It's a little gift shop. And I had the intention of being able to have classes, and also I have a health coaching business on the side, and the space that I have does not fit all of those purposes. So I've been looking for something that I could put everything under one roof, so to speak. And this property has been, I mean, I grew up in Scandia Valley, so I've driven by this property a lot. I spoke with the Ribideaus, and I knew that it was meant to be a bed and breakfast at one time, and so I thought that it could be sort of a commercial space potentially. And so my plan is to have my gift shop. I get a lot of requests for having a coffee shop as well, and so that would be an easy add-on. And then also have my health coaching business, which I would invite other practitioners such as massage therapy, estheticians, other holistic, naturopaths, those sorts of things, and have them all in one place for people, as well as be able to have yoga classes or other classes that would be related to that. And this property fits all of those, and checks all of those boxes. The problem is that it just would be too many employees. Even if I am creative in saying they're independent contractors for some of these businesses, or I invite them to run their own business within the space, it still maxes out the interim use permitting requirements or the cap. And so that's why we're here with the rezone. It's not so much that I wanted to rezone it, it's just, I think it would be a benefit to the community, honestly, to have something like this so close to the lakes area. I don't think it would be much of a eyesore or a negative to the area. I don't think that it's going to be causing a whole lot of excess traffic or noise or any of those sorts of things. But I do understand that the concern is that once it's zoned commercially, that when I'm dead and gone, that it could be anything. And I understand completely that that's the township's concern, is that it could eventually be something that's undesirable for the area.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask the planning commission, if you guys have any questions for staff or for Ms. Lack. Now would be the time. Marv?
Mr. Chair, so this board has a tendency to align or go along with the township recommendations. And maybe Amy can explain a little bit better this, but sounded like you'd want to rezone rather than having a CUP done here. And here, is there a way to maybe make this work as a CUP?
Mr. Chair, the reason why we're going down the road of a rezone is that the proposed use, what she's looking for, I don't have a use that I can offer her under a conditional use permit or an interim use permit in the agriculture zoning district. The closest we can get to that is a limited rural business, but one of the performance standards in a limited rural business is we cap you out at 7 employees. So with multi-tenant space, we will easily get over the 7 employees. So the path to permitting this, when I'm looking at this and when I'm advising a property owner, right out of the gate, she would not meet those performance standards that are required. So that's why I advised the rezone to have it, if she wanted to have it set up the way she wanted it. The other path would be, she would need to be coming before the Board of Adjustment to ask for relief from the performance standard of 7 employees. And then if she gets that, then she'd be coming for an interim use permit for that limited rural business with that variance. When there isn't a clear path like that, then that's why we advise the commercial zoning district request.
Thank you for explaining that.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Stish.
I have a question for Amy. Could you, pardon me?
Talking to your microphone, please.
Thank you. Could you bring up the chart of, for ag and commercial? And go down to the IUP section of,
Would you like the IUP section of agriculture?
yes. Yep. Okay, so the limited rural business fits underneath that category of use permits, and this is with performance standards.
That's correct.
That's kind of why we, we like this, these CUPs and IUPs in ag, is that the county has some control over it, and conditions can be placed upon them limiting the size or the intent of the business and the term of the business. You know, once a business owner is no longer the owner, then perhaps the interim use permit would say you're required to renew, you know, if the next owner wants to do it. You'd have to come in and go through the same routine of a public hearing, and so people would know what the intention of the business was. And there is really nothing else underneath ag that would contain, there's interim uses that again have a, without standards, but there's very limited.
That's correct. They're pretty narrow in scope. And when you look at the, really the intention or the purpose of the ag zoning district and the commercial zoning district, you see that reflected in the uses
Yep.
that are allowed.
And limited rural business, that can accommodate any number of,
It can, but it does have limits.
yep. Okay, then on to commercial, please. And I assume there's only a place or two that it fits there also.
Mr. Chair, I would say business enterprise is it's a permitted principal use. So if the property was zoned commercial, there would be no additional permitting other than any building or anything she would do, that she would not need any use permits to establish that use. We would look at that as a business enterprise, more than likely, or general sales and services. There's quite a few, or office, professional, and business. It fits under several different categories within the commercial zoning district.
And how would the candidate, I mean, the applicant go about getting a permit if we rezoned it?
If you rezoned it, she would just take up the use.
She would just pick up the use, no permit
Because it's a
needed.
permitted principal use. So it would be the equivalent of building a home in the agriculture zoning district. You don't need any special permitting from the board
Correct.
for that.
But I mean, how about from you, from land services?
Only if she's building something.
Sure,
Yep,
or
and we'd have to meet all the setbacks.
changing a structure
Yep,
or
and bring
something.
that septic system up to code. Otherwise, being as though it would be used as a commercial space, she more than likely, as she's revamping that, would need to be in contact with the Department of Labor and Industry to be bringing that building up to commercial code. That is outside of our purview. That would be the state that would oversee that.
So no public hearing, no use permit, no oversight by the county, other than complaint-driven, perhaps?
Correct, and it would depend on what the complaint is.
Sure. Yep. Okay, just to clarify.
And may I add something, or is that?
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So when I spoke with a couple of the township members regarding their decision, just to get clarification on it, and I was told multiple times that nobody is opposed to what I want to do. They're all quite happy with the addition of the businesses and all of that. It's just for the future. And so it's exactly what you're saying is, you know, if it's not me and somebody else can come in and open anything, and there's really limited regulation or involvement at the county level. I mean, there is at the state level, and there would be, you know, rules and regulations. So it's not like they could just open anything, but I know that's the concern.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Just
Go
like
ahead,
to add that, yeah, we're very familiar with the interim use permit processing and limited rural businesses. And we've we've had quite a variety of them, and discussions on how they fit into ag or shoreland, I guess just ag, and how it changes the complexion of the, that community, that area. Not having any control over it is kind of foreign to us as far as welcoming a business into an ag zone or a shoreland zone. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. Mr. Brucher?
I looked at this, and the thing that struck me was the part where you said you'd looked at the property once. It seems like a step too far to rezone commercial without some kind of plan, without some kind of better planning in this. Are these comments appropriate, Mr. Chairman?
You're saying them. I'll rebuttal them, but go ahead.
Okay, no. Well, that's my feeling is that before I could, agree with a zoning change, I think there'd have to be a little bit more of a long-term plan involved in it. And, some kind of business plan at what it isn't going to be just all of a sudden, you've looked at the property once and we're going to rezone it to commercial and tomorrow there's going to be 12 employees there or something. So I guess that's my thoughts on the I think it's good business practice, but thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Amy.
I just wanted to follow up with that as far as, you're really not, as a reminder, you're really not, you are looking at, I'm always going to tell you why they want to rezone, but really what you're looking at is a much larger picture. Is this an appropriate place for a commercially zoned area and the uses that are allowed? So although it's important to understand why she wants to rezone it, because that is really the immediate plan for the area, it's much bigger than that as far as, so really dialing into her business plan wouldn't be anything we would dissect during a rezone. And so I guess I'd offer that.
I missed, comment is that this is a big change, and it's permanent. If we recommend that the zoning changes, it's permanent. And so I guess I'm going to leave it at that. I won't make any more comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is anybody from Scandia Valley Town Board here? Okay, so I'm just gonna speculate on what they're worried about as far as future uses. So Amy, on this commercial use thing here, which uses on here would be regulated? I know like a junkyard, they'd have to come, so maybe they're worried about a junkyard coming in. That's regulated, right?
Yep, so Mr. Chair, when we get to permitted uses with performance standards, that's when we start with some level of oversight or standards that would need to be met. So in this chart, you can see the permitted uses with performance standards. There are conditional use permits, so things like outdoor recreation, solid waste facilities, wrecking, salvage, or junkyards, golf and country club, a big box retailer. All of those things would require a conditional use permit. Also, planned unit development, resorts, solar farm, those things. And then also, the reason why we don't see interim use permits here is we don't have anything that falls under an interim use permit in the commercial zoning district. So those are the things that would require, or like light manufacturing and assembly. Those things would all require conditional use permits.
So I think, and I think probably part of their, they're not here, so I'm just speculating, and I wouldn't want it either, is I'm sure, is a bar gonna go up out there in the future? Is a strip club gonna go out there in the future? Is there gonna be a junkyard well, them things are regulated, so I think, if they were here, it'd be nice to have that conversation with them.
Mr. Chair, I will interject because you did say bar. And so that is one thing that is a permitted principal use. So a tavern or nightclub could just be undertaken. When it comes to adult use, that is permitted with performance standards. The performance standards for adult use are written in such a way that it is almost impossible to cite one, because of the setbacks from everything that a facility like that would need to meet. It would be almost impossible to cite one
Yeah,
somewhere in the county.
but doesn't the county approve liquor licenses?
Yes, we do.
So you still got control over it.
Correct.
Okay, so when I first seen this, what I'm looking at, I'm not really looking at what she's using for the use. When I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this piece of property. If we're gonna change this to commercial, I'm not thinking about what she's gonna do with it, what's gonna happen forever. So Amy, we've had talks, is there a map of like kind of the mixed uses in that? Like from shoreland to ag to residential, do we have a map on that? I should have maybe asked you that before.
Yes.
You just have Scandia Valley, remember we had all them dots and stuff, but I suppose that'd take you forever to look for.
As far as the development
Well,
pattern?
so we've had a lot of discussions actually in the last year or two. Scandia Valley's a township that's pretty unique on all the multiple uses of it. It's mixed in, everything's mixed in, from lakeshore to residential to ag to forestry, and it's not like one section. It's there. If you look on the map, we've actually talked about this, right, in the last year or so, about all them things and how everything's mixed in there. It is a big recreational area. There is some pockets of pretty big agriculture. And, everybody, I'm pro ag and I like saving ag and all that stuff too. But when you really look at the whole thing, this corner, nothing's been done with it forever. And if you really think about it, I just look at it, changing it to commercial is not only what she'd want to do, but it'd be a great place for a gas station or a small grocery store or something like that. It's a gateway to that area. But so that's what we got to think about, not what she's going to use it for, but is it make sense to change it to commercial? And if it don't change it to commercial.
Mr. Chair, I just put up a map, Scandia Valley Township, with I think what you're asking for are the various zoning districts and the pockets. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, this don't show very good, but that's
No,
fine.
I'd have
but,
to zoom it in quite a bit to show more detail.
but anyways, it's just really diverse. So, and if this gets changed or not, we're gonna have a lot more of these coming in the future in that township. So that's just, if I'm for it or against it, I'm just bringing up that, that's, if you look at it through a different lens, there it's kind of opens up to get into that, and there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down that. So, we look all over the county. We got some. You go west, there's some commercial that's just right smack dab in the middle of farm country too, on the corner, right? To me, I don't know what's the difference between this and some of that other stuff. So it's just some questions to raise. That's all. Go ahead, Mr. Brucher.
Mr. Chairman, your points are well taken. Thank you.
So I thought I had a. Yeah, okay. So I guess at this time, I'm gonna open it up to public comment. So the way we're gonna do public comment is, one at a time, just go up to the microphone over on the podium by the wall. You have to speak into the microphone and please state your name for the record. If you got questions, ask your questions, we write them down. When we're all done with public comment, either someone on this board or staff will do the best to answer them questions. So at this time, I'll open it to public comment. If people want to go up to the microphone and talk, we appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Robert Brown. I am the adjacent landowner. I was here back in 2004 when the conditional use permit was originally given. I've had the land for 20-some years now. When I first bought the land, that building that was there looked quite a bit different than it did now. It was a brick building, had no roof, it had been burned inside it, and there had been a determination by the county in consideration to demolish it. But it was chosen that I found out that it would cost about $3,000 to do that, so I was elected to sell it. This was after I had had the property. A gentleman bought it who wanted to make it into a bachelor pad. I've been in the building. He added I guess what's called a second floor. But he was no carpenter. He didn't do the best job, frankly. And then, I remember going in there talking to him one day, and he said he was going to sell it. And I asked him why, and he pulled out his wallet, and he had a picture of a girl, and he said, "I'm going south with her." So anyway, then the Bonos bought it, and I wish at the time they had actually talked to me a little bit about their plans. We could have maybe come to an agreement. But the conditional use permit was given. There were a number of people at that time that expressed concern about the viability of a bed and breakfast in that location, whether it would succeed or not. And unfortunately, it did not succeed. It was never completed. And I think another unfortunate part was the building was added to significantly, to the front of it and the side of it. The history of the building is, prior to that, this is a building that hasn't had a use for it for a long time. Like you said, there's been different attempts at it, but none of them have succeeded. And so there has to be a concern going forward that that might happen again. Sorry about that. I don't know Carrie Lake. I'm sure she's a fine individual, and I'm sure she's got a good idea. But thank you. So one concern that I would have would be the viability of what's going in there. I think one of the problems is you're looking at kind of a shotgun approach. You're trying to have multiple uses in there: massage therapy, yoga, coffee shop, et cetera, because that building doesn't really fit normal commercial property, which is usually like single use, like you mentioned, a gas station, which we would certainly not want to see there. I bought the property primarily for recreational land. I spent a number of years improving the land. We use the land primarily for deer hunting, which is our number one use of the land. And I mean, that's basically why we bought it. Because of that use, we participated in ACUP. I'm sure you're all familiar with ACUP. There's 3 priority zones around Camp Ripley. This being directly across the street is in the highest priority of Camp Ripley, the Zone 1, as is my property. ACUP is a lifetime lease, which we entered into it. One of my goals is to transfer that property down to my son-in-law, who's here tonight, and to his grandson, and so on. Hopefully it'll go multi-generational. Putting that as commercial property basically prevents me from using my property in its intended use. ACUB is a federally funded easement, and I'm reading this in the Camp Ripley site, where it's a working land easement where farming, hunting, and normal agricultural activities may continue. I think you're well aware, if that becomes commercial property, I'm sure you've seen my deer stand there down the road. It's obvious that if that becomes commercial property, that's going to be hard for me to do what I want to do with my property. The ACUP program, again from the Camp Ripley site, says that it's designed to minimize intensive residential and commercial development within a designated work area around Camp Ripley so that Camp Ripley can pursue its mission. So this goes against the Army compatible use buffer zone. It's not compatible with that. I have not seen or been contacted about the plan, but I was provided some information by Amy. And in reading through that, wish I wouldn't have dropped those papers. It talks about changing the access for a parking lot to the west side of the building. There currently is no ingress on the west side. The ingress now is directly to the north of the building. If the ingress comes to the west side, and people come from Highway 1, drive to the west, turn south, go into the proposed parking lot, and then turn, and from what I heard, and I may be wrong because I heard this, drive on the south side of the building and then exit again through a second egress on the east side, you're basically shining my whole field with your headlights. You're making basically a U-turn all the way around. And I think it's a little unusual to have two ingress and egresses on such a small piece of property. I think there's somewhat of a safety concern. It's somewhat of a steep slope coming in and out. But it would be a little unusual to have two ingresses on such a short section of the road there. So my concern there is basically you're shining my field when I'm trying to deer hunt. And the season doesn't just go for 10 days. It goes from September to the end of December. So I guess I would at least make a offer to Carrie that I hope that she would at least make some mitigating effort to screen that with a wall or something, fence, which is impervious to light, so that when you drive in, you're not shining my field on the west and the south side of the property, which would take a considerable fence, 8 or 10 feet tall. I'd just like to point out just a couple of things that I'm sure the Planning and Zoning Commission you're already aware of. But it talks about one of the goals of the agricultural area is to provide and protect areas most suitable for a strong and stable agricultural industry and use policies and zoning amendments which will best protect those areas from encroachment by conflicting uses. I think you can see, at least for us, to rezone that to commercial is a conflicting use. In the same vein, one of the objectives is to mitigate the impacts of new commercial and industrial development on existing adjacent land use and the impacts of existing land use on new and commercial development. It says that you should consider the adverse secondary impacts of the business and its future use and limiting expansion that would be inappropriate for the area. I think one of the problems with the building, yes, there are some other spot things, but they're not in that immediate area. In that immediate area, it's all agriculture. To change that to commercial would be an example of spot zoning, which it says you should only rezone properties for commercial or industrial uses when such actions would be consistent with the comprehensive plan and when they would not constitute spot zoning for the convenience of a particular landowner. And then it talks about mixing of retail, business services, personal services, and other types of commercial activity shall be discouraged, which is kind of what is being proposed. It's a mix of a number of different things rather than a single use. I think those are my points. Again, I think for us, I just wish that maybe we had been talked to, maybe we could have worked something out, but I can't see it as a positive. It goes against everything I've worked for since I bought the property 20-some years ago, and what I hope to pass on to my son-in-law, grandson, and so on, for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? I'll ask for the third time, any public comment? If none, we'll close this portion of the meeting to public comment. So, did we derive any questions out of that, Amy, or things that?
Mr. Chair, I think the only one that came up was that I can answer at least, was the question about the ingress and egress and having more than one driveway access on that small of a parcel. The county engineer agrees with you. And so if that, in his comment, he had said he had no issue with moving that driveway entrance farther to the west, but that other driveway, there's one access, so that other driveway would have to be removed because it is one access per property. So if it was moved, there would not be that U-shaped in and out like you were talking about. So that would be the only thing, Mr. Chair, that I would have to speak to, I guess.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. Stish.
Question for Amy. I forgot to look up in my big zoning Bible today, but that's a 2-acre property. How large of a parcel does one need for a business?
Well, we, in the commercial zoning district, the minimum parcel size, I think is what you're asking.
Yes.
I'll double check it just to make sure. Give me one moment. So I want to make sure I'm right. I believe it's an acre and a half. Acre and a half.
Okay, so there's only room for one commercial
It could not be
parcel.
split.
It could not be split.
That's correct.
Okay. And then referring to his comment on spot zoning, yeah, it definitely is spot zoning. Typically, there are commercial districts where you have, you know, chances for multiple businesses to move in. And and his referral to a mix of different businesses, that's a good comment, but that's referring to, again, to a commercial district that would have, a whole hodgepodge of different commerce going on in the same area. That's to be discouraged, where they could be in conflict with one another. So, yeah, this is a very small parcel. And that's not a positive.
Anybody else on the board have any questions? My question that I have, and it's not really, needs to be answered, it's just the question that arises in my mind is when I look around in ag zoning and we have some commercial, one that comes to mind is out here by the 12-mile, corner. Them corners are zone commercial. So when I look at it, what's the difference between that and this? He brought up the A-cup thing, maybe, but you ain't adding 5 houses. I don't know. It's just questions for you guys to think. We don't have no criteria questions on this, but we'll go through some of this and, has there been change, in the population growth?
Did you close out public?
Yes.
Oh, you did.
Has there been change in the population growth or business change in area? I would say since this has been, that 2-acre parcel's been made, definitely. Has it happened in the last couple of years? I don't know. But there has been a big change since that parcel was developed. Was there a mistake made in the original zoning ordinance, which needs to be corrected? I wouldn't say there's a mistake, but maybe there's a need for a change. I don't know what you guys think about that. I don't know. Any of the other ones you guys want to tackle, or it's just questions to bring up, or is there any more discussion, I guess, what your guys' thoughts are?
If there isn't, are you gonna go right to the vote, or?
No, we gotta find, our job is to have this public hearing, get out all the information, right or wrong. The commissioners gotta decide on this. We're gonna give them a recommendation. So I think it's our due diligence to look at the good and the bad of this.
Mr. Chair, one item that does stand out in this questionnaire, does the rezone conform to the comp plan? And it was brought up, and before he even came and Mr. Brown made a comment, spot zoning was very clear. And spot zoning isn't part of the comp plan. And it, just like, I'm all for compromise, I'd all to use this building, how we can do it. And I keep on coming back, well, the CUP, you can control some of this. But to do this, man, that one, I'm trying to come up with a way to digest that without, and it just doesn't seem to want to flow.
So my deal is I look at it, like I said, I don't see a difference between this and the 12-mile out there.
Buildings out there are just trash.
That,
Sorry
it
to
don't,
speak up,
no,
sir,
it,
but-
yeah. And then to go back to that, being he spoke out and said about the buildings, everybody here, our board included, and some of the comments by Mr. Brown, it always goes back to that building. This decision does have nothing to do with that building. That building, if this gets changed commercial, it can get bulldozed down and you build anything. It isn't necessarily, to change the zoning has nothing to do with that building. Yeah, but it has nothing to do with the structures. Just because there's a structure there, it has nothing to do with the zoning. That's why I brought up what she wants to do. It matters, but for the future also. Does it fit for the future? If it don't, it don't. If it does, it does. It's just some of the things, that's why I brought it up, is for us to think about. The commissioners got to decide on this. We got to, just bring out that information, as much information for us and for them as we can. So That's just some of the questions I have. I'm not saying that if they're right, she's right, I'm right, you're right. That isn't what it's about. It's just find out as much if it's, so, when we say spot zoning, that's all I'm saying is I can't see a difference between this and that. So if we're gonna say this is spot zoning, so is that. There's just as much agriculture land right in that corner as up here. That's all I'm saying. So more discussion's good, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, in response to that, I don't know if you know the size of those parcels. They probably could be a split and multiple businesses could be there. So it's more of a commercial zone than just a commercial zoning for those particular businesses. And there is spot zoning commercially around the county, not very much of it. And just because there's a little bit doesn't mean there should be more. They always say a couple of wrongs don't make it right. In this case, does it fit, as Marv was saying, does it fit in with the comprehensive plan? Maybe. Her use certainly would fit in because it is pretty much the use that we have set aside in ag already, an interim use permit with a limited rural business. Her limitation is 7 employees. It could be conform with the comprehensive plan and the intention of the plan and what could be allowed in an ag zone, or for that matter, in a shoreland zone. But that's just her business. We don't know about other businesses that might want to locate there. It's a very small parcel, so there isn't much that can fit there, to be honest. There isn't even a lot of room for parking, really. I'm not sure how many, if she's, yeah, again, it's still, it's a rezone, so if you endeavor to go into business on this corner, you've got a lot of ifs, ands, and buts to cross off your list. But without an interim use permit, without conditions that could be placed on a business, it definitely will not conform with the intended use for that area, which is ag use, recreational use, residential use, and, as the gentleman stated, you've only got business that can go west. To the east of you, there's camp, there's ACUB. You draw from a pretty limited area with that location. It seems rather inappropriate to me to rezone without conditions, without a permit that ends with the ownership of the business or some other interim kind of a condition.
Any more comments? Or are you guys ready for us to go through the vote?
One comment, Amy, on this. Now, you stated that the applicant, if she were to go the other route with an IUP and a variance, that she'd have to go variance first and then IUP. Obviously, she could go IUP first. And then, as her business grows, she could say, well, I'm not going to meet the conditions anymore. I'd like to get a variance so that I could expand further. She could go that route also.
Yeah, if her business, if the plan was to meet the performance standards as they're written, then she would go straight to the IUP request. If not, she would need to secure the variance first.
Sure. But obviously, any business like that, it's going to take a while to grow, and she could go the other route.
That would be up to her.
Yes. Okay. So, these requests all cost some money. So, that was my comment.
Okay. You guys ready to vote? Okay, what we're gonna vote on is if we're gonna yes, if you wanna recommend the rezone to the commissioners, and no, if you wanna recommend to deny. Okay, so I'm gonna start with Dave Brucher.
You know, you made some good points, Clint, and Dave Stish made some good points too. I think I have to go back to what the town board, that the local community control wants. And I would have to, based on that, again, there's been good points that Clint made. And I'd have to go back to what the town board recommended and vote against a variance or a use change. Thank you.
So that's a no? Okay. Dave Stish.
No.
Marvin Treadle.
I agree with the comments the Brucher made, and I try to align myself with the township and the ability with a CUP or IEP to control what's going on there. With that being said, I am voting no.
Okay, myself, Clint Catherine, is yes. So it's 3-1, so it's in denied. Would somebody want to make a motion to the recommend denial to this application for rezone?
I so move.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Dave Brucher,
Aye.
Dave Stish,
Aye.
Marvin Treadle,
Aye.
Clint Catherine, nay. Motion passes.
Okay, so this recommendation is going to go to the county board at their January 3rd meeting. Will not be another public hearing, okay? So they're going to be taking into consideration everything that was heard tonight, the recommendation of the planning commission, and the county board then ultimately will grant or deny the rezone at their meeting on January 3rd. That is a Tuesday, and it's in the morning. Their meetings start at 9. I'm generally not on the agenda first thing, but when that agenda comes out, I can let you know what time that I'm on, okay?
And do I need to be there for that meeting or no?
You don't have to be. I can bring it on your behalf, but you certainly can be.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the public also. Okay, so I guess we have to approve our October 25th minutes. You guys get a chance to look at them.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
I will second that.
Okay, motion's made and seconded to approve our October 25th minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Any new business as far as,
Mr. Chair, I can wait till the end of the meeting, but we do have our new planning commission member here, but I'll introduce him later. But otherwise, no, I do not.
and then old business?
None of that either, Mr. Chair.
There is, but I'll let it go. Their motion adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye.
Aye.